Hi, Rick Harsh. I'm here to present part two of my brief sequence on the novel Voices After Evelyn, which I wrote, not coincidentally. I was going to say which I coincidentally wrote, but it wasn't a coincidence. It was a planned effort, and because I do sell books. Why the hell wouldn't I sell my own? Um, you know, uh, they've been around the block a few times, some of them. This one's been around a few blocks, and uh, it's been slow to get attention. Um, but then again, the Driftless trilogy is getting more attention than it ever has, and that's a trilogy of the first three books I ever wrote. They were. This is a crime novel of a sort. Um, I hope it's literary, but those three are satirical, and I hope they're literary. I hope they're funny. They should be entertaining. I can't see very well. I have these reading glasses, and when I put them on, I get this irritating thing that distracts me, and so now I can just see a fuzzy figure. Um, and so if you want to see me the way I see you, well, I don't know what, drop some red pepper in your eye or something. I don't know. Off to a pretty slow start. What we talked about La Crosse, Wisconsin, because this book is about a crime that, let's see when this article is from. Okay, I don't see the date. I took a screenshot from a website thing, but you'd see something like this every once in a while. That's the, I don't know, I think iconic is misused, but that's the representative photo that's always used of Evelyn Hartley. I think it's the only one. There may be one where she's wearing glasses, but this is the one that I remember. So there she is. That's the victim. Um, she was 15 years old, and on October 24th, 1953, there was a football game in La Crosse, Wisconsin, at the what is now the university, and back then was La Crosse Teachers College or something of that sort. And football was big there. It was a big game, and everybody was going, including Vigo, that's two G's, Rasmussen, a physics professor at the school, at the university or the teachers college, and also, I believe, no, not, I guess her parents didn't go. Her father was a professor at the university as well. I think mathematics. And the Rasmussen's regular babysitter, they had a 2 month or, I don't know, maybe 8 month old, I think, child. I checked all my facts before I did this, so only half of them are lost. How old was the infant? I saw one thing today that said 2 months. I think it's 6 to 8 months. But they were going to the game and they needed a babysitter. So their regular babysitter was also going to the game, and through asking colleagues at work, Vigo Rasmussen came up with Evelyn Hartley, and that was a rough break. Evelyn lived near the university, a nice street, pretty good place to live. And her father, middle class residents. Vigo and his wife lived. I'm gonna see if drawing a map would do me any good. It might. It might just come in handy. Vigo lived in a new development, a new housing development, on what at the time was near the outskirts of the town. Although it's kind of odd to think of a river city between the bluffs and the river as having outskirts. I've made this. This is the river. See that line? It's a wavy line. Okay, and here's the bluffs will be like flat top mountains, and actually it's very green. It's a very green town. There are lots of trees. It's like a forest. Although there's still marshland and so on. Okay, there are your bluffs. Okay, and they look like teeth, but I drew the line here so that I could. I'm going to make a grid pattern to represent the city. The letters D and T will mean downtown. Okay. U will be university. And I'm going to draw. Okay. This is the main area of La Crosse, not the north side, where this there's a marsh over here, and then it extends further. This is on the north side. Here, let's see. North, south, east, west. Okay. See, there's your windrows. Okay. Yeah. Oh, there went my writing implement. So the Evelyn lived she's in a circle, and she babysat at the X. Okay. Now the reason I'm bothering to do this is to show that at this time, although the city was expanding and had almost as many people as it has today, there's this area of at the base of the bluffs, it's forested. But at the time, between the housing developments and the base of the bluffs, there were bean fields, and so it was that there actually was an edge of town. It wasn't just spreading until it narrowed into a highway that disappeared. See where it says beans? Yeah, bean fields. So where she was when she was kidnapped in this little ranch house, which usually means one story, just a simple place, 3 bedrooms, kitchen, living room, basement, which comes into play. And I also wanted to draw this because at some point, now there's 2 lines represents highway, all right, And so you got a highway going along the river. See? Okay, but you also have another highway that at some point it develops and goes out of town, and to the east here. This is Highway 14, and this is a big highway in the story, because what happened was, probably within the first hour that Evelyn was babysitting, she was kidnapped. She could be seen at the time. I remember hearing this a long time ago. One of the themes that's obvious in this and in this story, since it was 1953, the mere kidnapping, and I say mere because it happens quite often. And the United States is a very violent country. There's a lot of crime. There's a lot of killings. School shootings are, practically, they're almost daily affairs. The people there are utterly insane in a way that no one can describe. There's something deeply wrong. Maybe I'll do something on that. Remind me, what's wrong with the United States? I'll call it the origin myth disease, because if I ever do try to define what unique sickness exists in the people in the United States, because, the reason I say that is because people often don't like to say, the people there are bad. I mean, they'll do it quietly and privately, and but then when you corner them, usually they'll say, "Nah, I don't mean that." Like, look at the I don't know how it was after World War II. I wasn't born till 5.5 years after Evelyn died, probably, and people probably didn't like Germans a lot, and when you have a region like ex-Yugoslavia here, a lot of people say Serbs are like this, Croats are like that, Slovenes are like this. Slovenes are interesting in that I can say that from my experience, Slovenes are like this. They like to say bad things about Slovenes. It's quite interesting, because I always think, well, but you're telling me this, and you're Slovene. So I don't know. It's an odd phenomenon, but in the United States, I believe that there is a historical, social, cultural cause and effect, that a process that has created a degenerate human being. But this is a different sort of scenario, in that this kind of crime happens all over the world. There's nothing surprising about the victim being an adolescent girl, and the perpetrators or perpetrator being an adult male, a young adult male, but an adult male. The when you look at crime around the world and throughout history, that's probably, other than, I suppose, male on male, if you include war and so on, is the most common. But of the unorganized crimes, perhaps men preying on women in one way or another is the most common. So this is normally it would be considered relatively common, except it happened in 1953. Now, the good thing about that for me is that I wasn't born yet, so I'm innocent. But also, I was born only 5.5 years after it happened, so a lot of people I knew in La Crosse, Wisconsin, remembered an extraordinary amount about the town at that time. And I talked to a lot of people about it. I talked to one of Evelyn Hartley's schoolmates, as a matter of fact. And I interviewed a lot of people for the book. And she actually was appalled by this book here, what actually came out of my pen. And I think we'll get into that in part 3 or 4. I think it'll take me, I think part 3 will probably be talking about the characters in this book, and part 4 will be about the behavior of this book. This book behaves in ways that some people don't like, and some people don't mind at all. But went exactly as I wanted. I was happy with it. So anyway, in 1953, there were not a lot of shocking crimes occurring in places like La Crosse, Wisconsin. And there is a sort of paradox in places that, even a degenerate place like the United States, there's a paradox in that the more vicious and deep runs the paradox, the more the society wants to protect its daughters. So the natural theme here, and you'll see when I tell you more about the case, is that the city's appalled at what happened there, and guilty. It's as if the city were an organism, and its behavior was extraordinary, excessive guilt. You know, it wanted to throw up its hands, but it's a giant one-celled organism, so it doesn't have arms or anything like that. But it really wants to throw up its arms and say, "I didn't do it," but it knows it did, and it did happen there. The theme that I use in the book, and it's a natural one, is the wolf. You know, the Puritans who settled the United States early on called the nature the wicked wood. Nature was bad. Nature needed to be tamed, and but when you build cities to keep out the evil, well, this is the event that showed La Crosse that it could not protect its daughters, its babysitters, and a wolf came into the village and took a baby away. And if civilization cannot prevent that, the fuck good is it? I mean, this is elemental. It's elemental. I've read a lot of stories about Indian village life. Indian. Because I've read a lot about panthers and tigers, and the strange phenomenon of them focusing on a village and terrorizing one village or one region, and then the attempt to hunt them down, the difficulty in doing so, and the genius of these animals once they start man eating, as it's called. They actually go after women as well. But that's pretty frightening stuff. And when it starts happening in the immaculate new world, where the white man has become more developed than any other human being anywhere else, and the wealthiest people, and the most Hitlerian proud people. Because the United States has this people there have the kind of origin myth that they believe that is something that Hitler would have I don't know what he would have done, but he would have loved to have that, the master race. The United States actually, they would never call it the master race, but the people of the United States do believe that they're a special people. They really do. And it has to do with a bizarre origin myth that is forgetful of the facts of slavery and Indian killing, Indian removal, and Mexican killing, slaughter. It's the most expansionist empire in the history of the world, the United States. But it starts with this myth of this city on the hill, a shining city on a hill, with people who are both rebels because they rebelled against the masters of one church and or another or many, I don't remember anymore, but and then and they set out to create a brilliant, organized, free and fair system that, as we know, is free and fair for people with money. That's the way it's always been, and it's the way it's always going to be. It's an oligarchy, and democracies cannot exist in a capitalist system. So, and what is more damning than having your babysitters taken away during the homecoming weekend? No, that's really bad for the reputation. So she was, Evelyn was taken away, and they found that the killer, or the killers, let's call them killers instead of abductors. She certainly was murdered that night. She was upstairs. There was a basement. They went in through a basement window that they managed to open with a screwdriver or crowbar or something. We don't know for sure. And they got into the house in the basement, and they took her out through the basement, which is really odd. Seems like it would be more difficult. I've watched a couple of shows now on this just recently to see what's come up, what new facts might have been released by police, because there's some pretty astonishing things that go into making this interesting enough for me to write about without solving the crime, because I'm not going to solve the crime. I probably could write that novel now, because I think I've heard enough to understand what happened and so on. But we'll get to that later, maybe in a epilogue. So I'm just going to talk about the elemental facts of the case, and I'm almost done with that. So part 3 will be talking about a lot about the days after, about the town's reactions. Some of them are hilarious, and well, anyway, the thing is, there was blood and fibers. She was wearing red side-zippered blue jeans. There's a song by Gene Vincent and the Blue Caps that Bebopalula. She's a woman in the red blue jeans, and whenever I hear that, I want, Gene, are they red or blue? Come on, they can't be red blue jeans. Well, anyway, that comes up in the book as well. What kind of pants was she wearing? Well, from what I've seen the last couple of days, the thing that astonishes people is that she was the killers should have, they went in, there were struggles with her. There are indications of some struggle upstairs and some downstairs, and contradictory reports from what I saw today about really meaningless things. But one thing everybody agrees on is that the killers took her out through the basement. Why did they do that? Why did they do that? Well, they could have just taken her out the front door, right? Well, I assume you had a healthy, frightened 15-year-old fighting for her life, and I think the path of least resistance is what they took. I think she must have run to the basement, and I'm assuming 2 men, grown men, and they had just come in there, and when she's in the basement, they, I don't know what, nobody knows anything. This is one weird thing, is that in talking about it, is nobody knows what kind of injuries she sustained. They found a lot of blood outside along the in this kind of window well that they took her out of and that they went in, and then on the grass there was pooled blood, and then there was a path through backyards and against other houses where there was one of her handprints, and there was smeared blood, and occasionally there was blood on the ground that had pooled a little bit. And one person posited today that she got a bloody nose, and I've had one in my life from a punch. I was 53, I was drunk, and I swung on a 23-year-old. And I threw a wild punch like this, and he just popped me right in the nose. And I take blood thinners, and that's none of your business. But I take blood thinners, and so I had a lot of blood. And so, yeah, maybe she sustained bloody nose. Who knows? But no pun intended. Where I'll leave it is that there are indications, strong indications, strong belief back then and now, that she was taken by car. She was taken about a block through yards, and where she bled on houses when there was a chance, and then was stuffed into a car and driven out of town via Highway 14. And so in the next part, we'll talk about the police, the investigators, the special investigator, the lie detector tests, and various other things that occurred after the initial crime, which was kidnapping and most definitely some assault, and the assault with intent to rape and murder. Certainly, the idea of rape without a body, it's very seldom I hear anybody even mention it when they talk about the case, but I believe it's a case of rape and murder, and that's where we'll leave it. In a couple of days, I'll be back. Evelyn Hartley. Yeah. Old mystery unsolved. I think it has been solved, and we'll get to that after we talk about a few more things. Thank you.